Welcome to CEO Money. I'm Michael Yorba. Thanks for joining with us. All right, I'm here with Yoram Solomon. He is a founder, or the founder, of the Trust Building Institute. Yoram, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
All right, you have all your books lined up. You've done a marvelous job of working through all of these books. I want to get some background from you, how you got into what you're doing, and then what Trust Building Institute does, and then I want to walk it through a couple of questions.
Of course, sounds good. I was an innovator. I started by filing a lot of patents for quite a few companies. I was fascinated by the process of innovation. I started helping companies after that innovate, create new ideas. What I found was that they create new ideas, it's not enough. That's where they die. They can die in that ideation workshop that I facilitated. When I got to my PhD dissertation, I needed to come up with a topic, and my topic was, why are people so much more creative when they work in startups than when they work in mature companies? I had startups. I sold startups back in Silicon Valley. I had my own startups that I started in my own home. But at the time I was working on my PhD, I was working for Texas Instruments, a company that with 35,000 employees is anything but a startup, and I could feel the difference. So I did my study 2 years around the world, the US, Canada, China, Europe, Israel, and I found the answer. I can boil down the answer to 2 words: innovation culture. And so I started studying innovation culture. I started helping companies build a culture of innovation. But what I found was, if you look at the first 3 components, the most important 3 components of a culture of innovation: autonomy, accountability, and constructive disagreement, none of this will happen if you don't have trust. And so I spent the last, I would say, about 4 years studying trust. And about 2 years ago, I was at a fork in the road. I had to decide whether I stay with innovation culture. I moved to trust. I asked 20 of my closest friends. 19 of them said, stick with innovation culture. So I switched to trust. And that's how I got there.
All right. Then let me ask, trust is important to businesses. Tell our audience why in some of the ways that aren't really that obvious. You know what I mean?
Well, one of the things that we complain in business is that our employees are not engaged. Well, when you have a high trust environment, your employees are 74% more engaged. They have 76% less stress. Your shareholder return in terms of dividends and stock price are 186% higher when you have higher trust. If you're a salesperson, I did several studies in the last several years. If you're a salesperson, you can sell the same thing for 29.6% higher price and still get the deal. That's why it's important.
It's interesting. You're able to delineate those statistics on trust. Okay. CEO being trustworthy. That is a big deal. Walk me through that.
Well, again, as a CEO, what are you measured on? You're measured on shareholder returns, right? Stockholder returns. If you can deliver 186% higher dividends, higher stock prices compared to the other CEO, wouldn't that be of interest? And I'm only focused on that. I'm not even talking about what you deliver. I'm not talking about your employees being happier. I'm not talking about anything else, about your actual profit, which, by the way, will drive a higher stock price. But just that fact, the ability to deliver such higher stock prices and shareholder return in general, that by itself, that's why the CEO is there.
I don't think there's enough people out there understanding that the basis of any true valuation for a company is the internal trust factor. That you must have really taken a lot of twists and turns to peel that onion away.
Definitely. And what I found is that in an organization, and this applies to for-profits, non-profits, public companies, private companies, government institutes, and I work with all of them, you need trust in 4 different areas. The management team or the board of directors, depending on the organization, the team itself, between the management team or the CEO and the staff, the subordinates, and between this organization and its customers, its constituents. If you don't have trust in even one of them, you are not going to deliver what you can.
I get it. So you've got to have trust all the way through there. I mean, it just seems like a common sense thing, but maybe there are a few people that get off the beaten path. So with that being said, how do you connect the chain of trust from top to bottom? How do you make that? What are some of the mechanics that maybe people aren't getting?
So first of all, I have a completely new perspective of what trust is and how do you measure trust. Right. I created in this entire new model 7 laws of trust. First of all, trust is continuous. It's not do I trust you, do I not trust you, it's how much do I trust you. Trust is contextual. I may trust you in one thing, not in another. Trust is personal. Trust only happens between 2 people. I know that we look at an organization and we say, what is the trust level of this organization? But it's really the average of every individual relationship. And once you break it down into individual relationships, it's a lot easier for you. Trust is transferable. So if I'm about to hire someone and you know that person has already started with a certain level of trust. Trust is reciprocal, and it's not necessarily that, if you're trustworthy, I will trust you, but if I trust you, you will behave in a trustworthy way, and this is where autonomy comes in. Trust is the product of your trustworthiness and my trustability. This is my willingness to trust other people. I'm the sum of my experiences, you're the sum of your experiences. There's nothing that you can do about my willingness to trust you. The only thing that you can work on is your trustworthiness. So I put it in your hands and I say, you can be more trustworthy and as a result be more trusted by anyone.
It seems to me like there's several workshops on multiple levels in order to make sure that the entire chain, because that's what it is when you have the C-suite, whether it's a board of directors or the C-suite from the CEOs, all the way down to the end recipients of the trust, or the end, I don't know, like the bottom of the food chain, if you will. I hate to be so gross about it, but you know what I mean. From top to bottom, there's got to be a series of different, maybe even higher and lower archives. I'm not sure I'm using the right word, but you know what I mean. How does that open up? I mean, you've got to be able to make all of those connections work, even though they operate on different levels. Do you know what I'm saying?
So trust can happen. Trust needs to happen in every different level.
Right.
But the silver bullet is if you start at the top. Start with the CEO and the C-suite. And here's why. When you have a toddler, a 1-year-old toddler, and she starts walking, and the first thing that she does after she starts walking is she starts running. After she runs the first time, the first thing that happens to her is that she falls. The first thing that she does after she falls is that she
cries.
No, she doesn't. She doesn't cry. The first thing that she does is she looks at you. She looks at you, at your behavior. If you're going to go, she's going to cry. If you're going to go, get up, keep going, she's going to get up and keep going, even though she hurts herself. This is how it works in the organization. If the CEO and the C-suite does not show that they trust each other and they're willing to trust their employees are not going to do the same thing downwards. They're not going to do the same thing towards the customer or their constituents or the community that they serve. So the silver bullet is to start at the top. Once the employees look up and they say, you know what, we have a team there that trusts themselves. Not only that, but we have a team that trusts us. Then we're going to start imitating that. We're going to look at them and essentially what they said is get up, keep going. That's what we're going to do. This is how it starts trickling down and out.
How do you get the people to relay that trust that we have in our organization in a more effective manner to the outside of the organization, whether it's public or private? Because there's got to be some key steps there.
Well, the one thing that I like to do is I take them through a workshop. I take them through those 7 laws of trust. By the way, I created an acronym for those 7 laws, and the acronym, first letter of every word is KPATRT. Very easy, it rolls off your tongue. Yes, yeah. I'm sorry, I couldn't find something that made more sense. But I teach them those 7 laws and the 6 elements of trustworthiness. Those 6 elements of trustworthiness apply to every relationship. It applies to the relationship between the CEO and the employees, between employees and themselves, between salespeople and the outside world. 3 of them are static. It's competence. For me to trust you, you need to be trustworthy. You need to show competence, shared values. We need to have a lot of commonalities and fairness and symmetry in our relationship. Then every interaction can increase or reduce the level of trustworthiness that at least I attribute to you. That's measured by the positivity of that interaction, the time, the length of that interaction, and the intimacy of that interaction. So for example, if you're familiar with Albert Mehrabian, he did a study back in the 60s, published it in a book in 1971 called Silent Messages. What he said was that 7% of our communications is conveyed through the words that we use. That's what you get in a text message or an email. 38% through the tone of voice, 55% through body language. So if our interaction, just like now, is face-to-face, we have 100% effectiveness of converting that time to trust. If our communication happens over email or over text, it's only 7% effective. That applies if you're the CEO and I'm your employee, if we're on the same team, if you're a salesperson and I'm your customer, and it applies if you're a school district serving its community. It applies to all of them. It's a different set of habits that you will need to adopt. And so far I developed 187 of those habits that you can adopt to be trusted by a very specific other role.
Which one of these books finds those habits?
Well, these 3 books are the first 3 in this series, and all of them are called Can I Trust You? The first one that came out is 50 plus 1 habits that will make you a trustworthy salesperson. The second one is 70 plus 1 habits that will make you a trustworthy leader. The third one is 67 plus 1 habits that will make you a trustworthy team member. And I'm going to continue from there. I'm right now working on, those are actually my 9th, 10th, and 11th books. I'm working on number 12 that would be a more comprehensive and cover the entire model that I created here over the last 4 years.
Where can we get the books?
Amazon, you can get them on my website. The easiest way, by the way, to get in touch with me is text the word trust to 21000. Just trust to 2100. Or you can tweet to trust 21000. Or I have a website, trust 21000. Or I have an Instagram account, trust 21000. There is something consistent there.
Yeah, I see a little bit.
Yes.
Thanks for being the guest today.
Thank you for having me, Michael.
You're welcome. All right, you've been watching CEO Money with Michael Yoram. Thanks for joining with us. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.